Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. Yes, it is that time again. Saturday night, 9 o'clock here on Manx Radio. Time for Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz with myself, H.
And me, Chris. Yes, welcome along to this week's Jumpin' In. As the cold wind blows, Manannan throws down his cloak of fog and the rain returns with a vengeance. It can mean only one thing. Yes, it's the middle of the summer holidays, but on the plus side, it is Saturday night. So whatever the weather, Jumpin' In is just the tonic you need. That with a great selection of modern jazz, put your feet up, grab a glass of what you fancy, and relax. So what's been rocking the raspberries in your fruit cage this week, H? Other than the winds, obviously.
Yeah, if only I had some raspberries to be rocked, I suppose. I got 3 birthday boys for the price of one. I've got a Seagal in the Vortex and Liberation Time.
Yeah, and for me, well, we're in time for the beginning, but not the start. We're falling down, but it's not a sham. We finish in early spring, but we start at the same time, and we begin all at once with Pierre Bettman Medium Ensemble. Very nice indeed. On Mem Tomp, I beg his pardon, on Mem Tomp, from Pierre de Bettman, Medium Ensemble, Volume 3, Toda, whatever that means.
Two toads?
Two toads, perhaps so, Todhe. If you know, drop us a line to Chris Kane at manxradio.com or indeed Howard Kane at manxradio.com. Now, for those in the know, Pierre is the leader of one of my favourite French trios, Prism, and is the pianist, composer and arranger of the Medium Ensemble, a tentet, including, among others, Stephen Guillaume on flugel and trumpet, Sylvain Berth, a good old friend of ours from the past, on alto, and David El Malek on tenor, and a very fine noise they make too. I have had Volume 1, Sisyphe, for years and years, and it popped up in shuffle on the car recently, and it made me think, I wonder if they've done any more. Well, I can report there are 3, and thus far, they're all good. I'll save Volume 2 for another show.
And you can't go wrong with Prism, I must admit. I've got another one of those ones to listen to. I know they've got 4 or 5 out now. And I've listened to a couple of them. I've got one more I haven't heard yet, but so far they've been universally excellent. Really good trio. I'd love to see them live sometimes, hopefully, or sometime, in the future perhaps, when we might be able to get back out to Brussels or the continent and such like. It is Jumpin In. We always like to celebrate birthdays when we can. Well, 3 for the price of 1 this week, because within the last 2 weeks or less, I think, 10 days, not 1, not 2, but 3 giants of the jazz scene, the contemporary jazz scene. Not all, sadly, with us anymore, but just earlier this week, the great drummer Jack DeJohnette is still with us, still playing. I think he's 79, would you believe? Gosh, Jack DeJohnette, 79. Shortly before that, Pat Metheny, also still very much with us, and is playing, I think, in London either later this year, or is it next year? Early next year, is it? I can't remember now. He's certainly on the tour again. He's got a new album coming out this back end. We featured on the show only a week or 2 back, and is touring that for the next 6-8 months or so. And also Charlie Hayden, a short time before that, sadly left us a year or 2 back, the great bass player. Happily, they played together on several albums, including this one. Amazing to think it's 40 years old plus. Still sounds fresh as paint though. Marvellous. Celebrating our 3 birthday boys. Pat Metheny, Charlie Hayden and Jack DeJohnette all celebrated birthdays. Also featured on sax there, Dewey Redman on tenor. Mike Brecker as well on tenor saxophone. Also, neither of those gentlemen with us anymore, sadly. We did have the great pleasure of speaking to both of them on this show, which is excellent, and lovely chaps they were as well. Sadly missed a fantastic recorded legacies, of course, for us all to enjoy. 8081. That was the track, and that was the name of the classic double album. If you don't know it, do yourself a favour.
Fantastic album. Remember buying the vinyl in Germany when touring with the youth choir, which gives you some sort of picture of how long ago it was. Yeah, fantastic man indeed. And I suppose the other 2 non-birthday boys would have had enough cake going around from the remaining 3. Now, guitarist, composer and painter Gabriel Vincenz, a native of Puerto Rico. He's been resident in New York for many years now. And if you don't know the name, well, he's already appeared on some 20 or so recordings with 4 in his own name. And his latest album, The Way We Are Created, was only released a couple of months ago. But for now, we go back to his debut in 2012 with a band of fellow Puerto Ricans and some heavyweight guests. Here's the start, El Comienzo. Taken from his 2012 debut album Point in Time, that was guitarist Gabriel Vincenz with his band with El Comienzo. Jonathan Suarzo on alto, along with David Sanchez on tenor, Matt Clahosi and Eddie Gomez taking the bass duties, Vladimir Coronel on the drums and Gabriel on guitar. Described by Downbeat magazine as a thoughtful improviser with a quiet tone that makes every note count. And based on his debut, I can't disagree. I have to look out for the more recent releases.
Absolutely so. You're listening to Jumpin' In with Chris and myself, H, here on Manx Radio, your weekly dose of the best in modern and contemporary jazz. And bang up to the moment now with the latest from the great John McLaughlin, still going strong. Not touring quite as much these days. I don't know, he's cut right back on touring these days. And clearly it's academic, really, isn't it? He wouldn't have been touring the same as anyone else for the last year or two, unfortunately. But of course, being John McLaughlin, he's not been twiddling his thumbs. He's got a new album out called Liberation Time. It features the likes of Julian Seagal on tenor sax, more from him a little bit later on, by the way, and his sort of regular lineup, Sam Burgess, Vinnie Colaiuta, and of course Gary Husband, a long-time collaborator with drums and piano. Album features some just straight, very introspective, short solo pieces by McLaughlin himself, along with stuff much more recognisably McLaughlin, I would say, like this one. classic McLaughlin. Doesn't seem to have slowed down with the years, does he?
In fairness, he's only 80. I mean, come on.
Yes, a stripling from his latest album, Liberation Time. Very much an album of our times, as it were. In as much as you can imagine, the Liberation Time, I think, is being liberated to be out playing again after the best part of 2 years of lockdown, during which this album was recorded. And as no lesser authority than Stuart Nicholson, writing in Jazzwise notes, possibly the best jazz critic on the planet, I dare say, few will come close to rivaling Liberation Time when it comes to those who've recorded albums during lockdown. It's all multi-tracked, so those parts there, in that particular case, John McLaughlin on guitar, Gary Husband at the drums, one of the loudest drummers you'll ever hear, I think, in the jazz scene, Sam Burgess on the bass. And as it puts in the recording notes, recorded in Monaco, which I think is where McLaughlin resides, Paris, London, Cairo and Los Angeles. In that case, I would think it would be Monaco for John McLaughlin, I assume London for Gary Husband, and I don't know, Sam Burgess, I'm guessing, might be Los Angeles. I don't know off the top of my... But nonetheless, a miracle of modern recording engineering. You wouldn't guess it to hear it there. A fantastic sound, some very wistful and inward-leaning playing from McLaughlin at times as well, particularly his little simple piano pieces are very much from the heart, I think, and very reflective. And then these pieces and the opening salvo, which is called As the Spirit Sings, which also features Vinnie Colaiuta on the drums, Gary Husband on keyboard on that one, I think, much more classic, all-out burnout. And as Stuart Nicholson says, an explosion of pent-up energy, stored up, no doubt, during lockdown. Liberation Time.
Yes, we actually played a little while ago. He released a couple of tracks with the same sort of lineup, with also Etienne Mbappe, his bass player, based in Paris, I think. But if you listen to those tracks, which they did as fundraisers via Bandcamp for musicians' charity, they all start with a click count-in, which is obviously how they were synchronising themselves together. Tricky business, synchronising yourselves together when you're spread across the world. Now, trumpeter, synthesist and composer Mark Isham is probably better known today for his work in scoring for the big screen, with some 400 or so film and TV scores, grossing more than $4 billion at the box office, 200 plus albums, not forgetting his 100 Oscar nominations and 57 Grammys. So how he finds time to get out for a jam with the boys, I really don't know. But here he is with pianist Michael Wolff live at LA Jazz Club Vitello's back in 2011, feeling funky with Falling Down. Falling Down with Michael Wolff on piano and Mark Isham on trumpet live at Vitello's. And if you only know Mark's cinema and TV scores, well, you could do a lot worse than digging into his back catalogue with Arslander on ECM releases, Rubisa Patrol or We Begin, or the fantastic 1995 Columbia release Blue Sun, where he plays a gentle but swinging tribute to Kind of Blue with a fantastic straight-ahead but very modern setting. I remember playing that non-stop for months when it came out. Well worth searching out, as indeed is Live at Vitello's. And thanks very much for Sunnyside Records for sending us that.
We're keeping it live as we hear from, as I said, Julian Seagal again. Julian Seagal Trio live at the Vortex in the company of the great drummer Joey Barron and Greg Cohen at the bass. An album described by none other personage than Joe Lovano is full of music and magic. It'll capture you as it did me with repeated listening. Bravo, says Joe. M.A.B. Julian Seagal Trio, Julian on tenor sax, Joey Barron drums, Greg Cohn double bass. One I picked up from the second-hand rack for the delight of being at Ray's Jazz in London on Charing Cross Road for the first time in at least 2 years, I think, or thereabouts. How pleased was I to see that place still there. Wonderful album, 2012. It's recorded at the Vortex Jazz Bar in Dalston in London. A great place it is. Happily still going despite lockdown and COVID, and let's hope long may it continue, and we will get there soon. Wonderful stuff, and some really different playing on it. It's some of the tracks far further out. That's fairly straight ahead. A wonderful track, which a bit longer, I might play some other time, which features Julian on bass, clarinet, doing a bit of multiphonics. Really good stuff.
Fantastic, and lucky old you getting down there, and hopefully me too soon. London Jazz Festival coming up. Well, that's about it for this week's show, but we can just squeeze in a track from the unclassifiable Polish institution that is Jazz Pospolita, or Jazzpo, as they're known to their fans. Established back in 2008, are they art rock, pop, experimental music, or jazz? Who cares? I'd like it. From the recently released Zipwyw, spelt Przyblyw, so apologies to any Polish listeners for pronunciation, and thanks to stevesjazzsounds.co.uk. Here's Zed Wiośniew, or to you and me, Early Spring. See you next week.
Rather you than me. Yep, look after yourselves.
Bye for now.